Hey modelers, Engineer Jeff here, and in this tutorial we're going to paint Tyranid warriors in the Hive fleet Kraken. What I've done here is I've taken the model and base coated it with bone white, and we're going to take some of this mahogany, which is kind of a reddish brown, and we're going to paint the Carapace. One of my theories on this is the bigger bugs are going to have a darker color to them, just because they're bigger, almost for the same reason I guess orc knobs are supposed to be a darker green. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. One of the nice things about the Vallejo Model Air paints is you really don't need to thin it down, and it still gives really good coverage. It's one of my favorite paint lines. Just a couple days ago there were some leaked pics of some of the new Tyranid models, so I'm kind of itching to get my hands on them. So once you get the legs painted and the back painted, go ahead and paint the gun. Again, your warrior may be a little different from this. Maybe you don't have a gun. Maybe you've got a bone sword and a lash whip or something. But you'll have to adjust your painting according to your biomorph. Should have something a little like this. It looks a little mottled, but that's okay. I just want good coverage. Take some Vallejo Model Air black, or any other black color that you have. We're going to paint any of the claws or talons. Don't forget these little dew claw thingies on the back. I also recommend that you paint the hooves at this point. I kind of forgot to record that part, as you can see here. So we're going to take the Vallejo Game Color Escorpina Green. I'm going to paint these vents. Just take your time. If you make a mistake, just go back over it with some bone white. Should end up with something like this, with painted hooves, of course. So we'll take some of the Game Color Warlord Purple. I'm going to paint the tongue. And the weapon feed tube that's down here. I'm not really sure what it is, but it's whatever's hooking the Tyranid warrior up to his weapon. It's something a little like this. I'm going to take the Freak Flex red tint and we're going to do all the joints. Badger's Minotaur line, the ghost tints, there's a red tint that's similar to this as well that you can use. Somebody had asked me about the brush I'm using. It's a Winsor Newton Series 7, number 1. I'm also going to paint the tendons around the jaw here with this. To get something like that. So I'm going to take the Game Color Bloody Red, mix in with a little bit of the Gory Red, and start doing some of the subtle highlighting on the Carapace. Again, we're going with the theme of trying to keep it a little darker than the basic troops like the Termagants, the Hormagaunts, Gene Stealers, Gargoyles. I don't know, maybe it signifies them having a thicker carapace or something. heavier armored. Just going to work your way down the carapace. Should get something a little like this. I'm also going to take some of that red and do some edge highlighting on the claws and talons. Don't want to get too crazy there, just like I said, do the edges. Notice I'm using the side of the brush to put the paint down, and you really don't want a lot of paint on the brush. You don't want it to be heavily loaded, so just make sure you offload a little bit onto your palette before you start doing this. And here I went back in and I painted the hooves black. I'm going to go in and do some highlighting on those with the red. Just a few strokes. Just enough to give it a hint of some red in them. Should get something a little like this. We'll take the Vallejo Game Color Orange Fire and we'll do the next stage of highlighting. I'm going to go in and get all the leading edges of the carapace. I'll start going in and laying in that texture. Now with the smaller bugs, you really just had to kind of make little brush strokes. What I'm doing here is I'm basically just tapping the brush on the model. Just enough to leave like a little footprint of paint. Just start working your way around the edge and then down the carapace. Vary your pattern and give it those little nuances that make it look neat. Work your way down the legs. Just little taps. And the gun. And start working on the head. This is a little bit of a tedious process, but I really like the results. Again, just focus on the edges. This is what we got so far. Also went in and did a few taps on the hose. We didn't show you. Here's my big old thing of bin wax polyshade in the antique walnut. I'm gonna get my pliers and give this baby a dip. After most of it's drained off and I flick the rest off, I'll go in with an old brush and kind of pull some of the stuff that's pooled up in areas I don't want it to be, like around the eyes. After about 6 to 8 hours, hit it with a dull coat and it looks something like this. Really knocks everything down a notch, brings it all together. So we're going to take the Escorpina green again and just kind of go back over the muscle vents or whatever those things are, taking care to not obliterate our subtle shading. Something like that. I'm going to take the bloody red and I'm going to thin it down a ratio of about 4 drops of paint to 1 drop of water. And All I'm doing is I'm going to go in and make little taps in and around the carapace on the edge. This is just to give it a little bit of a red nuance. It was a little darker than I wanted it to be. I know. I said I wanted it to be a dark carapace, but I had experimented around with this and I really liked the results, so went ahead and threw some additional red in there. Experiment around, you know, have fun with it. Maybe the next one I'll try a little bit of, I don't know, purple or something and see what it looks like. I'm also taking care not to obliterate any of the highlighting I've had from the previous stage. Again, we're not looking to overpower it, just add to. Something like that. We're going to take the Escarpina green again, and we're going to paint the eyes. Now, again, hindsight being 2020, I guess we could have painted the eyes back when we did the muscle vents. So, if you had the foresight to think about that, do it then. Take the gold yellow, and we're going to mix it in with some bone white, and we're going to do some extreme edge highlighting here. I'm really only hitting the tips of the armor or the carapace. What I've found is this is the final highlight stage that really makes the model pop. Carapace is like, blow! I'm a Tyranid warrior. Don't want a ton of paint on your brush, just enough to do the job. Little taps, little brush strokes. Having some fun. You should get something like that when you're done. And here's some still shots. If you liked the video, please leave your comments down below. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Our next video coming up, I think I'm going to do a zoanthrope, because I've got one of those sitting around. And after that, I think we're going to go over painting the Leviathan color scheme and then Behemoth. So we'll see you next video.